Hey, Howdy, hey, people that just want to leave Earth to become Na'vi characters so that you can sort of betray humanity and Anyway, Wolfman 47 Dash here to give you my reviews of the three Avatar films. You all know of them. They're a bunch of films made by James Cameron in an attempt to sort of give us the big screen entertainment that we all crave. You know, epic science fiction films. All shot in with the intent of giving people the experience they want in 3D, IMAX 3D. The other different sort of experiences as well. And it was basically one of these films or franchises, I should say, that really kind of pushed the sort of technology side of things, and also one that had a very long gap before we got the eventual next film. So yeah, we have three films to get through. So let's get right to it. Starting off with Avatar, the film from 2009. So. I saw this at the cinema with a couple of friends from school who I also went to college with, and we saw it in 3D. I initially wasn't all that interested in it to begin with, but my friends convinced me otherwise, and we went to see it. So all the films are written and directed by James Cameron, featuring this one features an ensemble cast that includes Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Stephen Lang, Michelle Rodriguez, and Sigourney Weaver. All the films are set in the mid 22nd century, where humans are colonising the planet Pandora. Sorry, I didn't know why I said Pandora. A lush, habitable moon in order to mine the valuable eubatonium. I think that's what it is. A room temperature superconductor mineral. The expansion of the mining colony threatens the existence of a local tribe of Na'vi, which are these humanoid species that are indigenous to Pandora. The title of the film is a reference to the whole idea that you are playing as a different sort of character, hence why it's called Avatar, and the reason why the Avatar Last Airbender franchise had to forego the name when the film came out, because James Cameron copyrighted the name at that point in time. The main film is focused on a character called Jake Sully, who is a disabled former Marine, becomes part of the Avatar program after his twin brother is killed, and his military background helps the Na'vi warriors relate to him in a way, because he's part of this group of people that consists of Sigourney Weaver's character. And a few others, and they are eventually tasked with sort of trying to convince the Na'vi tribe that they need to get out of the way, so that the evil humans can mine. And then eventually a faction of humans led by Jake Sully realise that the humans are evil, and they're wanting to destroy a planet that's otherwise very beautiful looking and is destroying their way of life. So that group works together with the Na'vi warriors, which takes a lot of convincing on their part to try and convince them to do things so that they can help them in the big fight. You've all seen the film. You know how it. You all know. Most of you have seen the film. You all know how it goes. It's made a huge amount of money at the box office. Honestly, although I do appreciate the efforts lots of people made in making it visually spectacular, it does unfortunately feature a very generic story, which is, it's kind of a very generic story that is reminiscent of things like Pocahontas and just very similar films to that. And yeah, it's not really all that original. The characters, some of them are interesting, some of them are funny, and some of them are just not really that interesting. Like, I like Stephen Lang's character, because he's basically your typical, very sort of stereotypical corporal who bosses you out, and you eventually betray them because he's a bit of an arse. Well, he's not really an arse to begin with, but he is a bit of an arse in the film. And then you got this rich guy who's very full of himself. I think that's the guy. I think he's played by, if I can find him, Giovanni Ribisi. Yeah, he's a big corporate dude, and corporate dude who's very full of himself and everything, and yeah, it's basically a film that makes you question about humanity and their role in the world, in the universe, and whether they are actually genuinely good or not. Or in this case, they made out that most of them are evil, and yada yada yada. You get the idea with that. So yeah, It's a visually spectacular film. Don't get me wrong, but just because it's visually spectacular doesn't mean that I'm going to be fooled by that doesn't mean that will fool me into thinking that the story and the characters are great as well. I think some of the characters are good. I think some of the story does work, and I do like how much this film is spent sort of establishing things as a first film should be. But in terms of how I feel about it, I don't think it's a perfect film, and I think there are parts that don't work, and there are sort of musical moments by which I mean sort of the score that doesn't work for me as well, because something that I know some YouTubers have an issue with when they see this film is the sort of choir moments in songs where it's just like a going yeah, that I find that annoying as well, so I'm with you guys there. So I'm going to give the first Avatar film all the way in 2009, I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. It's visually spectacular, but it doesn't mean it's a perfect film, is what I'm saying. So, yeah. So that was released in 2009. So the next film didn't come out until, let me just figure it out, 10, 11, 12, until 13 years later, or thereabouts, because technology just needed to get better over time. And so the next film came in 2002 called Avatar: The Way of Water, which to this day I still think is a very generic and boring title, because The Way of Water just sounds so boring. Personally, I would have gone with The Flow of Water, but obviously there's another film called Flow that where water is the main focus of that. So which did come out not too long after that one, or maybe before. Actually, no, it was after, so they probably copyrighted that, so they couldn't use that. But, it is what it is. Very similar. So, yeah. So, this came out in 2022. Again, another epic science fiction fantasy film. Once again, directed by James Cameron and written by him. Alongside Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver. With Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, and Stephen Lang reprising their roles from the first film. And Sigourney Weaver returning in this film, but playing a different role, where she's playing an adoptive daughter who is adopted by Sully and Zoe Salander's character, who I forget the name of, alongside their own children that they've made during this period of time between the first and second films. So in the film, Jake Sully, human turned Na'vi, and his family are now live on the habitable moon Pandora. They are hunted by RDA forces. RDA is the human faction that is on the planet. So they flee to an a water region to seek refuge with the Metkayina clan. So yeah, they're basically the RDA's most wanted Na'vi people, and they want to sort of plot their revenge or something, get them out of the way so they can continue with their mining operation, which sounds very similar to Lego Rock Raiders in a way. So yeah, anyway, so it's set 16 years, and if you're wondering how Stephen Lang returns as his character Miles Quaritch, I hope that I'm pronouncing that right. He gets turned into a sort of avatar kind of thing, but they find a way to sort of make him become a non-combatant, which basically means that despite being well and truly dead, his sort of conscious remains. So he doesn't remember him dying, but he does. But everything else that is him becomes part of this new non-combatant, who is basically a Na'vi avatar character, but you're stuck as that, and they find a way to do it without using the need of this great god, who I forget the name of, and I know they are mentioned a lot. So I think this one is a little bit better. It is longer as well. It's 192 minutes long, and it once again was a huge hit. And unlike the first film where I saw it in 3D, this one I saw it in 2D. I originally had plans to see it with this friend who who I was at one point thinking of going out with, but then I ultimately decided that I didn't wanted nothing to do with her or they, them, as they are known as. I don't care. I'll just call it her, just for the sake of it. But because this person was pissing me off all year, you know, because she had this very controlling behaviour and just made me do things I didn't really want to do. Because apparently I had all the time in the world, and nowadays I don't. Because not only am I doing YouTubing, I'm also got my other jobs and all this other stuff as well. So you know, I do use up my time a lot, but it is what it is. But anyway. So I originally was planning to see this on the Friday before New Year's with her, but because of how she was treating me just all that year and the years since, I decided I wanted nothing to do with her. So the day that we were going to see this film, I kind of ended it with her, and then a week or two later, I then went to the cinema with 323 Lee 323 to see it. We saw it in 2D. I needed to use the toilet during it, but I went to the toilet during a time when there wasn't really much going on, and as it turns out, I didn't really miss all that much when I eventually saw it again on the small screen. And this was the only film of the three films I didn't see in 3D, and probably just as well because I already had the experience, so I felt like I didn't really need that experience again. Nevertheless, I did enjoy it, probably a lot more than the first one because the water is just so beautiful to look at in the film, and the new characters are are interesting, very unique, and they kind of all look different and have a bit more personality to them compared to the original film. The only thing that kind of makes it stop me from making it a sort of higher rating than the first film is this moment when one of these sort of moving robot machines called a crab does a fist bump thing, which I kind of think is a bit douchey in a way. I don't know what it is with that. I know it might be cool looking to some, but to me it's just very douchey to me, and that kind of put me off a little bit from it. But overall, it is a better film. Probably is still following a very generic story with generic characters again and everything, but it's still very pretty to look at, and the water does look beautiful, to be fair, especially in the underwater parts as well. So on that basis, I'm also going to give it an 8 out of 10, just because of the fist bump thing with the crab. So that finally brings us on to the third and currently final film, which is Avatar: Fire and Ash. Again, another generic title, and it's all to do with fire things, but you know, it is what it is. And if it was up to me, I probably would call it something a bit better, like Burn Baby Burn, which is probably the name of a porno. Or something else, The Flames of Fire or something. Anyway, it's to do with fire, so I'll leave it at that. So this was released only a few years later after the second one, so not as big of a gap as the previous film. Obviously, both these sequels were made when 20th Century Fox was under Disney, so obviously 20th Century Studios. Once again directed and written by James Cameron, and also written by Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver. Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang, and Kate Winslet returned to reprise their roles from the previous film, because Kate Winslet was in the last film as well. With Anya Chaplin joining the cast as the Na'vi leader, as Varang, the Na'vi leader of the volcano-dwelling and warmongering Makwan clan, which are basically the Na'vis that are into the sort of fire and ash thing. And in this film, they kind of join forces with Lang and the RDA in taking down Sully and his family. Much of the film this time is basically about trying to save the life of the character who I'm trying to find. Here we go. The character known as Miles Spider Scoro, who was the teenage son of Quaritch, born in Hell's Gate, and in much of this film, he is sort of, he was originally accepted in the family by Jake Sully, but in this film they kind of sort of have doubts about whether he should be still with them or not, especially because of his reliance on needing these masks to breathe the planet's atmosphere. So in a way, it's kind of a more tragic story because they are trying to sort of figure out how to make this character called Spider work with them, and eventually, and we do get a sort of look at this city where the humans live as well. Lang is back playing the non-combatant Quaritch, who joins forces with the Fire Clan and kind of sort of accepts his non-combatant role, but is also sort of being portrayed or sort of cast aside by the RDA because of him disobeying orders and so forth. There's also this character played by what's his face from here we go, Jermaine Clement, who is a marine biologist who wants to study the sort of marine life in the oceanic area of Pandora, but the rest of his crew decide they want to sort of kill anything and everything, or kill all these big sea creatures for profit, which, you know, is a very typical generic villain thing to do. I saw this film with a friend of World of Me, who I'm also friends with. We go swimming a lot together, and we saw this, you know, on IMAX 3D. And of all the trailers we saw, leading up to the film, the Mandalorian and Grogu trailer was good, including the IMAX countdown to the start of Avatar: Fire and Ash. The trailer for it. The film was also released intentionally with the film's release was attached intentionally with teaser trailers for Avengers Doomsday, with the intent of having people see the film multiple times to give us a different teaser. And the teaser we saw, which featured Steve Rogers, was very underwhelming, so, you know, it doesn't really get you excited. And it's kind of embarrassing for Marvel, because of all the films to be advertised in IMAX, that one was just not good. And then there was another bit that was talking about the Odyssey film, which is obviously Christopher Nolan's next film, and as you all know, he was well known for sort of being the man that created IMAX, or one of the creators of IMAX. He takes the credit for it anyway. That was basically just a long scene from the film. We actually honestly thought we were in the wrong screen, but no, it was actually just a big preview of it. So, of his next film. So yeah, and I think out of the three films, this one isn't terrible. I wouldn't say it's great, because it does sort of rehash the first film in a way, particularly towards its climax. But it does sort of feature new characters again, and it does sort of make out that not every Na'vi tribe is going to be friendly. So, you know, it was original on that front. So yeah. So I think Fire and Ash overall, out of the three films, it's still not perfect. So, and I know I'm going to sound predictable when I say this, so I'm also going to give it an 8 out of 10. So the whole overall Avatar franchise is an 8 out of 10. And I know this will probably be the last film of the main storyline, and I know the next couple of sequels will be focusing on other things. So this, like the last one of the main storyline. Who knows what they'll do with the next one? We shall see. But it probably won't be James Cameron directing it, from what we've heard. But we'll see. So yeah. And let me just check, just to be consistent. Yes, this one was successful as well, of course, but didn't make as much for some reason. But still, you know, over the billion mark. So yeah, not quite there, up there with Zootropolis 2. But still a win overall for Disney either way. So yeah. So that is what I've got to say about all of the Avatar films. Obviously, draw your own conclusions. I know it's one of those franchises where you see the film, you talk about it, and then you move on to something else. It's like not many people really talk about it. You have the experience, and then you just move on. They're all very, very visually spectacular, so it definitely does well on the visuals front, but story and characters still do need work, but they do at least make up for it with all the visuals and that. So yeah. So that's it for these films until the next one comes out, of course, whenever that will be. So fire off in the comments below. Love to hear what you think about these films yourself, what you like, what you don't like, if you agree or disagree with me. I was originally planning to sort of talk about at least one of the video games as well, but I don't remember that much from it, and I don't actually remember if I actually played the video game I want to tour, which is the video game for the first game. But maybe I'll save it for another video, as well as the video game released by Ubisoft as well, which I've not yet played. So yeah, but anyway, thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you can, please. If you're new to the channel, I do reviews like this usually at weekends, not every weekend, but most weekends. And in addition to that, I also do lots of gaming videos. So I do a gameplay series video on Monday and Tuesday, alternating between 4 different games, and it's like a long game where I do a series of videos of. Every Wednesday I do a let's play video or a completely random game. Every Thursday, so that's Wednesday. Every Thursday I do a vlog on all sorts of different topics, including reviews like this. And then the rest of the week I do reviews like this as and when I see and play things. Gameplay compilation videos as and when I buy bundles or just a bunch of games that I'm happy to play with the intention of returning to them at a later date. Videos with friends as and when we get around to making videos with friends, and Holland Life vlogs usually every 2 weeks as and when I have stuff to talk about and have stuff to show off and try, and shorts as well. So yeah, alright, sorry, see you next one. Peace to you all. Sorry, Nick, forgot myself there. And I forget the motto of the Avatar franchise, but remember, just because something looks visually spectacular doesn't mean it's a great film. We all know this after seeing so many big budget blockbuster films that look visually great, but lack on the sort of character and plot departments, you know. But the visuals do make up for that usually. So yeah, all right, toodles.